The United States has hit a grim milestone, more than 10,000 deaths from the coronavirus. And that's more than the number of deaths from the 6 wars the U.S. has been involved in. 1,150 deaths have been recorded in just over 24 hours. New York State is the epicenter in the U.S. Undertakers are so overworked that a city official has raised the possibility of carrying out temporary burials in a public park. One funeral director likened the situation to the September 11 terror attacks, but going on for days and days. Now, while the number of daily deaths appear to have slowed, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo warns now is not the time to be lax. Simon Marks joins us from Washington, D.C. Simon, so some predictions that the outbreak might actually be reaching its apex in virus hotspots like New York City. Does that seem to be the case?
Well, Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York State, Glenda, says that it's definitely possible that the virus is now reaching its apex. If you look at the numbers of the 10,993 deaths nationally, 3,480 have taken place in New York City itself. So New York clearly far and away the U.S. epicenter for coronavirus, certainly as far as fatalities is concerned. But Governor Cuomo was at pains in his press conference yesterday to warn Americans not to assume that they could now relax, that this indicated the whole thing was coming to an end. First of all, he says there are some models out there that are not convinced that this is necessarily the apex. Secondly, he argued that even if the situation was plateauing out in New York, it was plateauing out at a level where the hospital system simply couldn't cope. He described the situation there as code red. So he definitely does not think that New York, at least, is out of the woods yet, and he notably did not use the phrase that President Donald Trump used several times yesterday when he said the United States was now seeing, in his words, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, there are still a lot of grim news points out there for this story, Simon. Morgues, for one, are overflowing in New York. How is the city dealing with this?
Yeah, I mean, this must have been desperately discomforting and concerning to the families of those people who have died in New York City. Mayor Bill de Blasio, at his news briefing yesterday, and remember, he's the mayor of New York City, he doesn't have responsibility for the rest of the state, made the point that mortuaries and burial services, undertakers, simply can't deal with the numbers that they are now having to make arrangements for. And so he said that there may be a case for the city to engage in temporary burials. Now, there have been a whole slew of reports spreading like wildfire on social media that New York had a plan to dig trenches in public parks and bury people in mass graves there. The mayor says that is absolutely not the case. It is misinformation. It is fake news. There is a huge gulf, a huge distance between temporary burials in controlled circumstances and mass burials in essentially unmarked graves. And he says at all times the city will treat families with the utmost respect as they go through what could be a temporary burial process.
Simon, let's look at the rest of the state. So outside New York, how's the situation looking?
Well, worrying. I mean, you heard Dr. Cowlings there from Hong Kong a few minutes ago talking about the difficulties of Wuhan unlocking while other cities remain, you know, in a febrile state as far as coronavirus is concerned. And that is absolutely the eventuality that the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, says he wants to avoid. If you look across the country, Los Angeles in California, Chicago in Illinois, Detroit in Michigan, New Orleans in Louisiana, these are all emerging hotspots for coronavirus. And right on the edge of New York, the state of New Jersey, where the situation is also chronically bad. So that's one of the reasons why officials are saying, let's not celebrate yet the notion that we're over the top of the curve. We might be over the top of the curve in New York City, but there are many other curves, say President Trump's public health officials, in many other cities yet to come.
Thanks for that update. Simon Marks in Washington, D.C. with the latest on the COVID-19 situation in the U.S.